Welcome to another episode of French Toast Fridays. My name is Andy Jolivet, and I'm joined by my friend Tyler McCarty. Was ist los?
See.
Behind the scenes, as always, we have our friend Marco Zitzer. What is up, Marco? Still no mic. Still no mic for him.
You got to wave.
Yeah. The three of us are friends who each have a business that allows us to do meaningful work in the world. And this podcast was born during a conversation right here at Tyler's house. We were talking about the people we know who are living great stories that deserve to be shared. Tyler made us French toast that morning.
On Friday.
And it was a Friday. Whether you are tuning in right now from your commute to or from work, on the treadmill, or while taking a moment to unwind, we want to remind you that life is best when it's simple and sincere, with plenty of syrup. Our conversation today is with Terry Esau. But before we talk with Terry, we want to thank you for listening. If you enjoy this conversation, feel free to subscribe, leave a review, let people know what you think of the show. But now let's jump into that show. Let's begin French Toast Fridays.
With syrup.
This episode of French Toast Fridays is sponsored by Legacy River Coffee. Legacy River, savoring tradition, one sip at a time. Terry Esau, in no particular order, is a musician, author, and philanthropeneur. I don't know if that's a word already, but it fits you.
It sounds good.
Yeah.
It's a good word.
He's a biker. He is a speaker. He's a husband, a dad, a grandpa. And I feel qualified to say this because I've known you for several years, but he's also just a wonderful human being. So Terry Esau, welcome to French Toast Fridays.
Yes.
Thanks, man. That's a kind intro. I like it.
Yeah, well, you're a good dude. We're grateful for you joining us. It's fun for you, who I care about and think the world of, to meet other people that I know and care about and think are awesome. Congratulations. You guys just met a cool person. That's a Ted Lasso.
I love that. Yes.
Here we go.
Yep. So we're going to get into your career and your life and a number of other interests and hobbies that you have. But by way of kind of easing us into the conversation, we have 5 questions that we have prepared for you. You can go wherever you want with them. You can be brief. You can go long, whatever you want. Okay. What was your first job? First job thing you got paid for?
It might either be a paper route or mowing lawns. I was a lawn mowing entrepreneur at 10.
Are we talking like little Terry pushing his lawnmower down the street to the neighbors' houses?
Yeah, I think the handle on the lawnmower was about right here.
Yeah, yeah. You had the green shoes to prove it.
Yeah, but then the paper route was like, I got paid to ride my bike.
Yeah.
What could be better?
And it was fun. Like after a bunch of us who were paper boys, that's what they called us back then, we'd deliver our things, and then we went to this ice cream shop and we'd get a chocolate malt and we'd talk about our business.
Your business? That's what you called it?
Yeah.
How can we do this better, faster?
How was business?
Yeah.
How was work today, guys?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we did. And we were, like 10, 12 years old. It's like silly, but fun.
That's great.
Remind me where you grew up. I know it's a smaller town.
Mountain Lake, Minnesota.
Which is where?
2,000 people in southwestern Minnesota.
Okay.
That's awesome.
And there's no mountain and a man-made lake.
Whoa.
So
Mountain Lake.
Well, it sounds better.
It does. It's got a nice ring to it.
I started a publishing company and I called it Puddle Hill. And I didn't tell the people from Mountain Lake that I was kind of degrading the name of their city.
That's good. That's good. So Terry in Mountain Lake, what was his greatest fear?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Monsters under the bed.
Not getting that paper up on the deck.
Yeah.
No, it was
the Anderson's dog chasing you.
It might have been a few dogs.
Yeah.
Because I did get chased. Every paper boy got chased by dogs. We'd go. There was an island on the lake, and we'd go out there and camp out a lot and stuff. And I mean, there were times where, I mean, there was this one time a tornado came through and it's like, we're trying to hold our tent down from going up in the air. And it was like, So there were a few hairy moments like that.
Yeah. Let's back up. Your parents let you go camping on the night of the tornado on the island?
Were there meteorologists in Mountain Lake?
Not a lot back then, but the interesting thing is, you know, this tornado comes through town and nobody came to check on us. And it's like, I think we came home that the next afternoon and they go, oh, that's good to see you're okay. Yeah. You're not dead.
Society's changed a little bit.
Yeah. There were no helicopter parents back then.
Yeah, so I think that your response of kind of not being sure is maybe that there was no fear as a kid.
Yeah, it was a great place to grow up.
Yeah.
Man, you got on your bike and you had free reign of the city.
Yeah, you could go from one side.
You could go anywhere, do anything. We'd get up and go fishing in the morning, and then we'd go swimming in the afternoon.
I love that meme picture where back then when parents wanted to know where kids were, they just had to drive around the neighborhood and where all the bikes were just laid in the lawn. That's where you knew all the kids were.
Yep.
So, yep.
It was great.
Yeah.
This is a one-word question. Aliens?
Do I only get one word?
No, you get as many words as you want.
Oh, I hope so.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, I actually just started watching Three Body Problem. Oh, have you heard about this?
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it yet. That's Netflix.
Oh, you got to check it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of aliens, it's a sci-fi thing, and it's like, man, I watched the first episode and I'm hooked.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I hope there's life on other planets. I hope there's. I think that would be fun, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah.
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 As long as they don't hate us.
Yeah.
want to blow us away, but I got to believe they'd be curious about who we are too, don't you think?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I wonder what they call us. Or maybe aliens. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, probably aliens.
Aliens from that blue ball.
That's right. Somewhere, whatever the equivalent of a podcast is on that other place, there's someone talking about aliens. I hope so. What's the best thing that you've done recently that didn't cost any money?
You know, this is going to sound typical, but a bike ride.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is. I'm 69 years old, but every time I get on my bike, I'm 5 years old.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, it doesn't cost me anything, although.
Yeah, I've heard you say that your bike costs more than your car. So
yeah, that's true. My bike is ridiculous. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah, looks like longingly looking
great.
at it. Sorry, you can't go ride it right now, Terry. We're going to keep talking for a little while.
We're not done yet.
There he goes. We lost him.
He's gone. Oh,
you're
light.
You're either really strong or that's really light.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't weigh anything.
That's great.
So yeah, it's a carbon fiber bike that, you know, I actually call my bike my carbon fiber therapist.
Yeah.
So I don't pay any money to go to a therapist because she is my therapist. Mm-hmm. And I get on my bike and 100 yards into it, all stress just starts to dissipate.
Does she have a name?
Well, it's like my bank. Yeah, I haven't named her. I shouldn't I? My wife doesn't want me to name her because she already thinks my bike is my mistress. So,
well, I know your wife, Mary. She's just a wonderful person as well. And I can imagine that there's days where she's like, Terry, go take a bike ride. Like you need to just go do that and then come back.
Not very often,
really,
because she knows I'm probably going to do it anyhow.
So she doesn't need to tell you.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if you are slightly different. You know, we all have something that kind of helps us release, whether it's frustration or anger or just like energy that's not, you know, kind of unfiltered or unchanneled. And then we have that thing that releases it. And then when we come back, we're just like a little bit more grounded.
Yeah.
So
that's my bike.
Yeah.
it's almost magical, and that's one of the reasons why, I started Free Bikes for Kids, a nonprofit we're trying to make sure every kid has the opportunity to have a bike.
Yeah.
Partly because I know how it's changed my life. Like when I did the paper route, but then when I was 16, I rode my bike to the West Coast and back from Mountain Lake. So, those are the kind of things as a kid that really kind of set a pattern for your life, I think.
Sure. Yeah. Let's continue that, because I have a fifth question. So if anybody's watching or listening at home, I realize I only asked 4 questions, but I'll go back to 5 but Free Bikes for Kids, which is this nonprofit that you have dreamed and started with a group of other people, and a ton of donations, volunteers, helped other 5-year-olds or similarly aged people get to experience what you still kind of channel into your bike rides all the time. How did that come to be? Walk me through. I know it's coming up on 15 years that it's actually existed, correct?
Right. Yeah. Well, it happened by accident. I got a call one day in December and said, "Hey, there's a kid in our neighborhood, doesn't have a bike. Parents had a tough year financially." And at the time I had started a cycling club, and I was bike racing. And so I had all these connections to other cyclists. So I just reached out to them and said, "Hey, do you have any bikes that, of your kids that they've outgrown, they're not using?" Turns out everybody does. Every garage, I swear, has a kid's bike sitting in it that's collecting dust.
Yep.
So at the time I had done all the music for Carol Evans' news theme. So I called Carol Evans and said, "Hey, can I come on, invite people to donate bikes to me and my cycling buddies? We're going to fix them up, give them away." They said, "Sure." In 2 weeks, we got 250 bikes donated. We fixed them up, gave them away. My friends all said, "That's fun. Let's do it again next year." 750 bikes. The next year it was 1,500. Wow. That's when I said, "This doesn't really feel like a hobby anymore.
There's something to this." Right.
Yeah. So I said, maybe we should form a nonprofit, put together a board. I'll go find a corporate sponsor. I went and met with Allina Health. They came on board. That year we gave away 5,000 bikes. We continued to do that for, a few years. And then I started looking around at other organizations that do what we do. And our model was very different than theirs, which I won't get into now. But I said, I think we could create a template, so it's a plug and play program. And I think we could then take this to other cities. So that's when the board goes, "Okay, you come full time with the organization and we'll do that." So now we're in 22 cities. We've given away 175,000 bikes. We're working with Target. And I think, I shouldn't say this online because this isn't done deal yet, but I think Walmart is going to start giving us a lot of their return bikes. By the way, Walmart gets 15,000 bikes returned every month.
A month.
Wow.
Every month. And a large percentage of those end up in landfills.
Oh my gosh.
So what we're trying to say is give those bikes to us.
Sure.
We'll make sure that a kid who can afford a bike now has a bike.
Absolutely.
So that's the vision.
Yeah.
My goal is to give away 1 million bikes in my lifetime. And I think we can do it.
And we're approaching 200,000 right now.
Yes.
But if you charted this, it does have a bit of an exponential growth to it. So going from the first 150,000 to getting up to 300,000, 500,000 is going to go quicker than the 14, 15 years.
Yeah.
And you're going to live forever, so you'll get there.
Well, what's interesting about that, though, and I've talked about this. I actually did a TED Talk where I talked a little bit about this. But a lot of times you have these moments in your life where it's an idea or a phone call or a conversation, and you go, well, I wonder what would happen if I took 10 minutes or took a day and explored that to see if maybe there's something there. So it's like, that's why I go, I had never had intended to start a nonprofit of giving bikes away. But one phone call and a few phone calls of taking action on that turned into something. So, and that's kind of the story of my life. It's like, you get an idea, you throw it at the wall and see if it sticks and go, well, hey, this might be something.
Sure.
That's what this podcast is.
Yeah.
We're not sure if it sticks yet or not, but we're checking that out. Your TED Talk, Harnessing the Power of Restlessness, I believe is what you called it. Yep. I had shared it with Tyler and Marco, so they've seen that. We will get to that. Actually, one of our 5 questions we usually ask people is, if you could give a TED Talk, what would the topic be? So for you, obviously, we're not going to ask that because we can just share the link and people can go and watch that. And so much of probably what we talk about might feel to a person who's seen that, or even for you to say like, oh, I've talked about this in my TED Talk, because so much of that kind of becomes a little bit of like with all the life experience, wisdom, whatever else that I've had, how can I channel that into 15 minutes, right? In a way that might be helpful or not just interesting, but inspiring also for other people. Right. You talked about your work with Care 11. So for those of you outside of kind of the upper Midwest, Care 11's the NBC affiliate in Minneapolis, St. Paul. You were doing TV commercials, jingles on the kind of music, but production side, working with musicians. That was a career for quite a while for you, right?
Yeah, that was that was my career.
Sure.
That was about 30 years of my life.
So you had, depending on who you are and what your perspective is on this, quite a successful career doing that. You had more than enough connections that then helped you with the next thing in many ways. But that's what you were doing, and I don't know how fulfilling or content you were, but it was a creative itch that you were able to scratch. You were able to you and Mary and your kids were able to have, the lifestyle that you wanted, and you were doing that. And then this thing comes along, and it's not like you were just ready to give up that career yet. You had to kind of figure out how to do both for a little while. And it sounds like the board or other people kind of eventually told you, hey, why don't you give up that thing so this can be full time?
Yeah, yes and no. There was actually a little bit of a career in between where I'll tell you a story. So my music career. So I wrote and produced music for TV commercials mostly. So I've done commercials for McDonald's and Pepsi and Harleys and Hondas, and Target Christmas campaign with Amy Grant, and a Sam Goody commercial with Alice Cooper, and I did some Sesame Street music. I got to mix a tune with Prince.
I was going to say I've heard a rumor that there was a Prince connection in there.
Yeah, that's another whole long story, but a fun story. Yeah. But anyhow, so after I was doing this for many years, and one day I get a call from an ad agency, and they said, "Hey, we want you to do a jingle for a product called Inhibitor Bolus." I actually tell this story in my TED Talk. Inhibitor bolus is a big pill that a farmer forces a cow to swallow. It goes through their system, and when the cow drops its pie in the pasture, now the cow pie is laced with a chemical that inhibits the reproduction of flies. Mm-hmm. So they wanted me to write a jingle about a product that killed flies in cow pies. And I refer to this as my first epiphany, where I go, I'm not sure if I can do this the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I started getting restless, and that led me into what, was kind of like my second career, where I got 3 books published, and I did a lot of traveling and speaking. And then that led me into the nonprofit world and starting free bikes for kids and stuff. So yeah, I obviously I have an attention span problem, where if I do something for a certain period of time, I just get restless, and I go, I need some other motivation, some other challenge now to keep me engaged in life. Mm-hmm. And that's probably bad advice for some people, unless you have a short attention span and you need to have new things in your life in order to stay engaged.
Yeah. Right.
Which is me. So
yeah. But it seems
like you guys.
It seems like you're carrying a lot of the stuff that you've put passion into the next projects, though.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Is it
good-
obvious to you in the moment what you're bringing with you, or is it just like you're doing the next thing and then somewhere along the way you're like, oh, this is like something I developed somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
It's almost never obvious to me.
With your perspective now, looking back, like when you were preparing your TED Talk and you were looking back at that 30 whatever year career, the different stops along the way, were you able to see the thread that connects them then?
Yeah. Here's another short story. So I was in my recording studio. So I bought a bank building that I turned into my recording studio. And one day I'm sitting at the piano and I'm trying to compose this piece. I don't even remember what it was for. And as I'm sitting there, and a lot of people talk about writer's block, musicians have that too. But for me, it's like I had been a composer on demand for so long that I just go, you sit there and eventually something comes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sitting there trying to write a piece of music. And the whole time I had this weird story going through my head. I go, okay, it's Christmas morning. This was in December. It's Christmas morning. Guy wakes up disenchanted with life. Just doesn't feel it. So he gets a piece of cardboard and he writes the word heaven on it. And he takes it to the side of the highway, puts out his thumb, starts hitchhiking. And I'm going, wait a minute. Why? Wait, I'm supposed to be composing this piece of music. So I sat, I started hitting the keys again. And then I go, oh, wait. And then a guy pulls over in a rusted out pickup truck to pick up this hitchhiker, but he's dressed up head to toe like Santa Claus, but like a white trash Santa. He's got fake white beard and ketchup stains and French fries. And they're driving down the road. And then I go, no, I'm supposed to be writing a jingle here. And then I go, oh. And then they see another hitchhiker with a sign that says Earth, and Santa says, I don't want to miss this. So he pulls over. So we kind of have this, Christ figure who's hitchhiking to Earth on Christmas morning, sitting beside a guy who's trying to figure out what's the meaning of life, trying to get to heaven. And they're being chauffeured by the cultural icon of Christmas, and I got up from the piano and I went up to my computer and I wrote the story. And here's the point. It's like as I was writing the story, I had this impression that notes were turning into words and melodies were turning into sentences and rhythm was becoming punctuation. So I had this feeling of, okay, I'm not a story writer. I never have been, but I go, I'm doing exactly what I've been doing for 30 years. I'm just using a different palette now. I'm using different colors. So that was one of those things where I go, you can have a career change, but what you used in your previous career is a palette that translates into a different palette that you can use for this other career, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, because you bring yourself into all of them. And
Right.
so then you have different tools, resources available to you, but there's still a certain thing that's going to flow out of you. When you were talking about kind of whether or not the Flies and Cow Pies jingle had any alignment or connection to what actually mattered to you, and it, surprise, surprise, sounds like it didn't. Although there might be some farmers out in Mountain Lake who are grateful for that, But it reminded me of, I don't know if you've ever heard of Frederick Buechner, but Buechner, who's one of my favorite writers, he was a professor, pastor, author, novelist, but in his memoirs, I consider him like the godfather of vocation. So vocation, that sense of calling. And I just looked it up because I wanted to be able to get it right. Maybe you've heard this before. But he basically said that there's different kinds of voices calling you into all sorts of different kinds of work. And he's not talking about like psychotic voices that you hear. He's talking about like, for those that are attuned to the language of like Holy Spirit or whatever. And he said the problem is, though, with all these voices is figuring out which one is the voice of God rather than the voice of society or your ego or your self-interest, which certainly are voices that we hear that are pretty convincing and we can follow them. But he said, by and large, a good rule for finding out is this: the kind of work that God usually calls you to is the kind of work that A, you need to most do, and B, the world most needs to have done. And then he gives an example that is what reminded me of what you said. He says, if you really get a kick out of your work, you've presumably met requirement A, that you need to do it.
Yeah.
But if your work is writing TV deodorant commercials, the chances are that you're missing requirement B. On the other hand, if your work is being a doctor in a leper colony, you've probably met requirement B. But if you're bored and depressed by it, the chances are you have not only bypassed A, but you probably aren't helping your patients much either.
Yeah.
And then he goes, the money line in this is, then he says, the place that God calls you to is the place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet.
Yeah.
And you found that in so many different ways, it sounds like, that intersection point.
Yeah. The only critique I'd offer of Buechner there is somebody needs to write the music for the deodorant commercial too.
Well, I'm a big believer in deodorant, so don't get me wrong there.
But I think we can all, you can't define somebody's purpose for them, right? That's something that you have to find in yourself. So, I did this commercial for, killing cow flies. And that said, that was telling me that I needed to maybe look for something that gave me more purpose. But I don't want to ever judge and say, to somebody else that, well, now if you're still doing music for cow pie stuff, you're not following your vocation.
Sure.
I don't really believe that.
Yep.
And I think we need to be really careful about being judgmental about what is a viable and valuable vocation versus what isn't. Because that depends on the person.
I've always heard vocation talked about in a two-dimensional thing in terms of like there's an internal and an external call. And so It has to be 2 for 2. It's not enough that other people see that as a worthwhile thing that you're qualified to do. And it's not enough that you feel like you should do it.
Right.
But when both are there, you have the affirmation and support of other people. They can see it and they probably can respond positively to the thing you're doing. There's an actual need there, and it's bringing you some sort of whatever your threshold for the amount of purpose or fulfillment you need. It's bringing you some of that. And, we're some of the first generations that got to actually think about things like fulfillment, whereas, our grandparents thought about just like, I got to provide for my family. So work is,
Right.
So you've worked with all these people, you had the advertising career, you started Free Bikes for Kids. You've now, I think it's fair to call it almost like a franchised nonprofit. I know that you can't quite use that, but you've helped launch Free Bikes for Kids in other cities.
Right.
Which is amazing. So clearly there's a need for it. It's not just a unique situation to Minneapolis, St. Paul. This is something that there's little kids without bikes all over the world, at least in our country,
Yes.
but elsewhere. And they're going to experience a certain kind of freedom and joy. For some people, it's just confidence, right? Like some people, learning to ride a bike is at the point in your life when you learn how to do it, it's one of the greatest accomplishments a kid has made to that point. And,
Right.
it gives them an independence that they've never experienced before. They can go further, faster.
They can go explore the world.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
They can go beyond their block.
Yep. Mm-hmm. This you guys have even set a Guinness record for this, correct?
Yeah. We, here in Minneapolis, we collected about 10,000 bikes in 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
So I should send you a picture of that.
Yeah.
Because we had this, I think it's an 80,000 square foot warehouse that was empty in the morning. And by 3:30 in the afternoon, I think there was only one aisle in that warehouse through the middle, and the rest was solid bikes leaned up against each other. It was like, it's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, it really is.
We will. We'll get some of those things. I know where some of them are as well. I actually had volunteered to help doing. So part of, I think what's really cool about what you guys do is the overhead's really low. You rent a warehouse for the season. Sometimes I understand it's given to you at a no cost or a really good deal.
We've never rented.
Yeah. So that's great.
We've always got donated.
Yeah. It takes a lot of space to hold that many bikes. And then you have not just like corporations that can donate. Like I think there's a bike shop in town that donates helmets for each kid that gets a bike so they can be safe. You bring in people who know how to not just clean the bikes, but actually fix them up to make sure that they're operating safely. You have the big giveaways. You have churches, schools, groups that you partner with to do this. I'm sure corporations bring in groups of volunteers. I was able to be there. I think unbeknownst to me that it was even you had any connection to it, but I knew you from before. I signed up on a bike distribution day. And oh my gosh, if you want to see joy and just feel good, show up on one of these days where there's going to be a line like around the block of all these kids. I think it's usually just before or after Christmas.
Here in Minneapolis, we do it early December. Yeah.
And they're in line. And not only do they get a bike, they get to choose their bike. So it's like based on your age and size.
They go shopping.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
they
you get to pick all
for a
this. And then they get to go outside and ride it around a little bit if the weather cooperates. And just to see that over and over again. Oh my gosh, what a gift.
I'm just curious. Do you guys remember your first bike?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. What was it?
I had a gray Huffy.
Mine was a Huffy too.
And I put, I got these blinkers that I put on the back. So like I had a little thing on the handlebar where I could put the blinkers on. I think I had something mounted on the front too.
I think the only thing special I had on the back was some pegs.
You
so
did
like
have
a
pegs?
buddy could
Yeah.
ride in the back. Yeah. Yep.
So I ask this question all the time,
Yep.
and I've never had anybody say, I don't remember my first bike, because it's such a life transformational moment, right?
Yep.
So, part of my goal here is that I want, when we ask that question of kids, I want every kid to be able to have that memory of that first bike, because like you said, it's transformational. It's a ticket to explore the world. It's achievement. It's something to take care of. And we actually talk about the bike as BX versus RX. Like, instead of preventatively, we have childhood obesity and diabetes in our country, and they're prescribed medication to deal with those things. And what we're trying to do is get doctors to prescribe a bicycle as a medical device and say, this is a preventive medical advice, so you don't have to deal with this stuff down the road. So yeah, we're hoping to really work with the medical community and see if we can make some change in that.
Yeah. That's a really outside of the box thought.
I like the frame.
That's really good.
This episode of French Toast Fridays is sponsored by Oak and Glen, a creative studio with a passion for visual storytelling. So somewhere along the way then, this model that you had developed that clearly was working shifts to something that also goes back to your, not just childhood, but to your life with music. And you start to think about, well, could we do something similar with guitars? How does this happen then?
And how does Mary feel about this? Let's jump to another one.
Mary? She's not here. That's probably good.
Yeah.
I was on a call with a friend from out in the Bay Area, somebody who I did some music with when we were like in our early 20s, and we'd stayed in touch, and he became this Yale grad who was an entrepreneur and started an electric motorcycle company, and he started one of the first music library companies. Brilliant guy. We're on the phone call and we're talking, and we both have a passion for music. He's a guitar player. And as we're talking, we go, what's the most common musical instrument sold in the world? Probably a guitar, right? What's the instrument that probably, if you ask most kids, what instrument would you like to learn? Probably a guitar. So there's this huge supply of guitars out there, because I'd say there are probably, I don't know what percentage this is, because I don't think there's ever been a study, but out of every guitar that's purchased by somebody, a first guitar, how many of those people go beyond like a third lesson or a third attempt, and then the guitar sits in the closet? So we just thought, I think what we're doing with free bikes could translate to free guitars. And then, surprisingly enough, we haven't even started that model of collecting used guitars yet. because we talked with Fender and Gibson and Cordoba and Taylor, all these guitar manufacturers, and they're going, this is a cool idea. We'd like to be part of this. So like last summer, Gibson, at their headquarters in Nashville, we gave away 200 guitars, brand new guitars, by the way. And Fender has now, like a couple months ago, we gave away a couple hundred guitars in Lahaina, where they had the fire. So a lot of people lost their homes, their instruments. So we gave guitars away there. We're giving guitars away all over the place now, but we're mostly partnering with guitar manufacturers to either give us guitars or give us a screaming deal on guitars. So yeah, free guitars is going to scale much faster than free bikes. At least I'm predicting that now.
I think you're right. I mean, that'd be huge. I feel like Jack Johnson was at the Lahaina one handing out free guitars, and he'd sign it for a lot of people. I think I saw a video on that.
Yeah, and we didn't even ask him to do it. We were working with an artist called Ron Artis, who's a killer guitar player, almost like a Hendrix kind of player. And he lives there, and he was our guy. And then I don't know if he asked Jack Johnson to come in or what happened.
That's so cool.
But yeah, when Amy Grant was here in town, I kind of had a relationship with her from working on the Target thing. We gave away guitars at her event. Corey Wong is a really up and coming guitarist. He has the #1 guitar podcast in the world right now. And he's been partnering with us, giving guitars away. When he was at First Avenue here in Minneapolis, the guitar he was playing, he said, I'm going to auction this guitar off at the end of this show. I'll sign it. High bid. You get the guitar that I've just been playing on this tour. And all the money goes to free guitars for kids. So yeah. And the thing about that is everybody loves music, right? And everybody knows 100 artists or guitar players who are famous. And they all have huge social media followings. So that's why I think that's going to scale so fast, because, most Americans probably can't name 2 famous cyclists, right?
Yep.
And the one that they do often name became famous for other reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a lot of talent.
Yeah. 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 I don't think there's performance enhancing drugs
for guitar
or music. I think there's drugs in music. I don't think there's.
In the 60s, people thought differently about that.
Well, you said Jimi Hendrix. I don't know. Maybe he did have an advantage.
So you have this up and coming model with the guitars, but you also have this lofty 1 million goals for the bikes. Are you kind of handing off the guitar piece more so to the friend in the Bay Area and letting them run with it, and being more of a consultant, or?
No. So I'm the chair of the board of that nonprofit, but we hired an executive director full time who actually lives in Portland.
Okay.
But we have board members from around the country. One of our board members lives in Omaha, and he has a $7 million guitar collection.
Wow.
So he's, we have some interesting people who are working with us on this. But yeah, and Ben, our executive director in Portland, he's amazing.
Great.
I mean, he's just killing it.
Mm-hmm. So there's going to be fast paced with that.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be, we just had a board meeting yesterday on Zoom, and it's so much fun when you're working with people who are visionaries, when you're doing something that you all love.
Mm-hmm.
And like Buechner said, it's putting good into the world, right?
Yep.
And it's changing people's lives for the better. When you can bring all of that stuff together, it's like you wake up in the morning energized for the day.
Yeah. You're like, yeah.
And that's that's my life, I guess.
That's awesome.
Which I'm grateful for.
That's awesome.
That is amazing. Yeah.
So you said how old you are. I wouldn't have put you anywhere near that age. But
you see my hair?
Yeah, but I see that you have so much hair is what I see. I mean, I have gray hair and I'm not near your age, but I'm very impressed with your energy, your, I think, passion, your just creativity and ideas that just continues to go, which must be, curiosity and other things must feed into that. But I'm wondering, what does retirement, the word or the idea, mean or look like for you? Because in some ways, I don't know if technically, because you're on the boards for your two nonprofits, and I'm guessing you have other ideas. You continue to write. We haven't even gotten into the fact that, you have these various books that you've written. You write kind of articles and short stories. You've written a novel that I got to connect with you and kind of help you launch out or release into the world.
That you were there at the beginning of that.
Yeah. And so you have all these creative outlets and ideas. And so whether or not you're always getting paid for them or not, and I don't even know how important that is to you, but do you imagine yourself ever kind of like shifting gears into more like retirement mode, or do you just think this is all stuff you care about and you'll keep doing as long as you can?
Well, I look at retirement this way. If I were retired, what would I be doing? And I think I'd be doing exactly what I'm doing now. So I don't know. I really think that there is something innate in us as human beings that we need to be about something that gives us purpose and meaning. Otherwise, you struggle. You struggle to get up in the morning. So right now I've got a palette of things that give me purpose and meaning. And I think, at least some of them I think are putting good into the world and changing people's lives. So I have to be careful what I say here. You probably have gathered this. I'm better at starting things than running and managing things. And, I think, boy, I should not be saying this on a podcast. But I think my Free Bikes for Kids board knows that at some point I'm probably, I need to turn this over to somebody else. And part of the reason is not because I don't have passion for it anymore, but because I'm maybe not the best person to manage something when it gets to this size and scale. So I think there are people out there who maybe could run that better. And I could still be involved in developing partnerships like with Target and Walmart and stuff like that. That's where I can bring value. But managing the day-to-day operations of this thing as it gets bigger and bigger, that becomes a logistics problem. And I'm not sure I'm a good logistics guy.
When it sounds like if that was what it was, it might start to feel a little bit like cow pies and flies to you.
I might be feeling a little restless.
Yeah. Well, that's been your way to know.
I should listen to my podcast, shouldn't I?
Yeah, right.
Well, we'll give you that
your
chance.
TED Talk, yeah. Yep.
Well, we don't want you to get restless during this conversation, and I think that your attention span has been really, really good and focused. Last little question, and then we'll give you a chance to just plug anything else that you want to share. In your TED Talk, this was TEDx Minneapolis last summer, which we'll post on our website, a link and the video for that, which I would definitely recommend people checking out. And again, it is you talking about what role restlessness has played in your life, kind of as a source or inspiration to do new things, and also for not just get stuck in some area where you're going to start spinning your wheels. But so you grabbed your guitar near the beginning of that, and you played a couple chords of Smoke on the Water. but then you rode off the stage on a bike. If you could only have one for the rest of your life, which one would it be?
Oh, you can't do that to me, man.
I'm not asking you to choose which of your daughters you love the most or grandkids.
Almost.
Yeah.
No, I've had two tangible, inanimate objects. Although I'm not sure bike or guitar are inanimate. I think they're inherently possessed by a spirit of joy. But I've had two great loves in my life, bikes and guitars.
You too, Mary. You too, Mary.
Yes. I said inanimate.
Yes, okay,
right.
Fair enough.
Mary is definitely not inanimate. So those two things have been weaving through my life, my whole life. And so they both bring me great joy. They both make me happy. They both have given purpose and meaning to my life. So I couldn't choose. I mean, I refuse to choose.
Okay, fair enough. No pushing from here. You've made the case for both, and it does sound like they are approximately equal. So
There's some give and take.
yeah. Well, one of the things we like to do with our guests is, as a thank you, make a contribution on their behalf to the nonprofit of their choice. I'm going to guess that same answer if we asked you to choose between free bikes for kids and free guitar kids, you couldn't. So we'll happily make a gift to both and support them.
$100,000 to each of them.
That's to each.
would be wonderful.
That's a little less than we normally give, but yeah, since that was your request, we'll do that.
We could compensate with some bicycles.
I spoke too soon.
And we will definitely share information for people to learn more about you, your organizations, other creative work that you've done. But I would definitely give a plug to anyone who has a bike in their garage or connections to musicians or guitar shops or anything like that you think would be interested in this. But also just to go and see it for yourself. There are times that you can volunteer to go and clean the bikes. If you are a gearhead and you can fix them up, there's opportunities to do that. There's opportunities if you have a group of friends or from church or your team at work who's looking for something to do together, they can do that. Or like me, they can just sign up to see it all in action the day that kids come and get their bikes. No matter what, I'm confident they would be really, I think, touched by whatever time they put into that.
Yeah, you can't. I still remember the guy who was chair of our board at first. The first time he walked into a warehouse, and at that time we had about 5,000 bikes that we had collected that day. And he walked in, and it's like all of a sudden he had tears running down his face because he had the vision that these are not 5,000 bikes. These represent 5,000 kids who don't have a bike. And he saw that this will change 5,000 lives, so, and just one more little plug. It takes us about $25 to $30 to put a kid on a bike, and every kid gets a brand new helmet, like you said. At this point, it costs us around $100 to give a kid a guitar. Now we're not giving the cheapest guitars out either. We're giving guitars that they're generally about a $300 guitar, because we want to make sure that, the cheapest guitar sometimes is a difficult guitar to play. So we wanted to make sure we're giving away decent guitars to give every kid a better shot at actually learning this thing. So, but, for $100, a kid gets a really nice guitar. So if any of your people who are listening to this, rich dudes out there, rich dudes of the world, you want to get involved in something and make a difference in the world.
This is a good one.
Yeah.
Cool. I've heard you share this vision that you dream that someday at the Grammys, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
You tell it.
Well, yeah, this is a dream that I first had with free bikes. So, like I said, we give bikes to under-resourced kids. So these are kids who, their families can't afford a bike, can't afford a guitar. My dream is because I'm addicted to the Tour de France. I flew over there one time just to watch the last day of it. But my dream is that someday a kid will be standing on the top podium step at the Tour and say, when I was invisible, an organization saw me and gave me my first bike, and someday a woman will be standing on the stage accepting her Grammy and say, hey, when I was invisible, unseen by the world, somebody saw me and gave me my first guitar, because I think we're going to find a next tour winner. And I think we're definitely going to find the next Hendrix or Dave Grohl or Jack White or Andreas Segovia or Eric Clapton. We're going to, or Kenny Chesney. I should make sure I
hit all the genres.
Hit all the music genres here. I think we're going to find some of those people. There's a kid in Minneapolis we gave a guitar to at the Amy Grant thing. And we have a video on our website now of this kid busking on Nicollet Avenue downtown, playing songs that he wrote. That's pretty cool. I mean, this kid might be our Grammy winner. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Grammy or not, Tour de France winner or not, you are part of something. You have helped get something launched, and you have invited others to join you in it, and it is doing good in the world. It's rippling out. I can only imagine how widely that has touched others, and I trust that it fulfills you and helps you sleep well at night and be proud of what you're doing and the legacy of not just Terry Esau, but the things that you've been involved with. I think speaks for itself. So we're grateful for you, not just for your time and for the stories, but for all that you're doing out there in the world, living a great story. And so thank you. Keep it going. Keep enjoying it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
This has really been fun.
Yeah.
My only disappointment is I didn't get any French toast.
Oh, we were trying to figure out a care package where we could send it in advance and we could have like a virtual French toast time.
It just gets so floppy.
Yeah.
But we're working on it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's probably freeze dried of some kind.
Yeah,
but
right. But
next time we do this, I'll make some French toast and I'll eat it while you
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
we'll send you the recipe that Tyler has because he's been perfecting it over the time. It's real good.
But I appreciate what you guys are doing because the world needs to hear stories of people who have found their passion, engaged with it in a way that it impacts the world in a positive way. So you guys, I mean, we're all just storytellers, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what I tried to do with my jingle business. That's what I'm trying to do with my books. That's what I'm trying to do with free bikes and free guitars. We're just telling stories and inviting people into that story. So kudos.
The great thing about you, Terry, is you took a stigma of restlessness though and spun it into something inspiring. So, that's amazing as well.
Yeah. Well, short attention span.
You're saying the reaction you had to the question about aliens, about all these other things that we talk about. My response is the same. I hope so.
How fun would that be?
Yeah.
All of it.
And what kind of bicycles would they have?
But everything we've talked about, the Grammy, the Tour de France, everything. I hope so.
What kind of music would aliens play? I mean, we could discover a whole new...
We know the answer to that. Daft Punk. We've already heard it.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
Well, good stuff. Thanks, Terry.
Thank you again, Terry.
Thank you guys so much.
Yes.
Good luck
Awesome.
on your podcast.
Thanks so much.
Great work.
Thanks.
Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This episode of French Toast Fridays is sponsored by Align Coaching, guidance to live in alignment with your purpose and values.
What's up, Toasties? Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about today's guest or anything we talked about, visit the show page on FrenchToastFridays.com. We believe that a lot of people have great stories that are worth telling, and we plan on continuing to do this. So if you know someone who would be a great guest, or if you want to be a sponsor on the show, please send us a note at FrenchToastPod@gmail.com. And always remember, life is best when it's simple and sincere with plenty of syrup.